expeditiously as possible to get through all these items. So we're going to just start with our introductions and our welcomes. So we're going to start with Catherine. Catherine, the Home Coalition.
Acting Director for Monterey County Department of Social Services.
Elsa Jimenez, Health Department, Monterey County.
Ryan Sword.
Rafael Hernandez, Monterey County Partnership Housing Program Associate Union for Nahuatl.
Kurt Shockey, BTC.
Elliot Robinson, community member.
Israel, Homeless Coalition. Katrina McKenzie with the Homeless Coalition.
Manny Gonzalez, the Housing Authority.
Leah Roscoe, Mayor for the City of Gonzales.
Doug Enter, Mayor of Salinas.
Michael Barr, Mayor of the City.
And I'm Supervisor Luis Alejo. Let's go to the public section.
I'm Jackie Smith with the Chinatown CSOB Market Center.
Michael Lisbon, Monterey County Health Department.
Gina Alvarez with CISA.
Javier Gomez with Supervisor with Maria Desmond with Steve McShane.
Jackie Palmer, Social Services.
Oh, Megan from the City of Salinas.
Maria Roden on the Social Services.
Kathy Wilbur, Fund for Homeless Women.
Mary Lee Henry Gathering for Women.
Oh, wait, what's the solicitor?
Doug Dredd, Cobb,
Right. Gutierrez, Housing Resource Center.
Brian Dempsey, City of Seaside.
CJ Valenzuela, City of Salinas.
Folks that just came in.
John Morales with Rescue.
Darius Brown, Monterey County Office of Education.
Dave Kuchek, Seaside City Council.
Seaside in the house. John O'Leary.
Jack Burke, Transition Center.
Sir,
Nick Erickson, representing the Faith Community.
okay, we got everybody. Okay, let's go into our additions and modifications. We got a request from Elsa Jimenez.
I would like to add an item for discussion and hopefully action to discuss the Aging Home Plan and strategies for updating it, revamping it, whatever the city decides, and then agreement on allocation methodology for paying for a new 10-year Aging Home Plan, which will be critical not only for the work of this, but also is a requirement under the No Place Like Home funding that the health department will be pursuing, and so we'd like this body to discuss that and hopefully take action on proceeding forward with the funding process.
So this is important because Proposition 2, that was a $2 billion homeless housing bond, and there's a deadline coming up in May, right? But is that true?
The deadline is August, but in order to get the RFP out for people to respond to the RFP, it needs to be the No Place Like the Leaving Home Plan needs to be updated by May, so that we can get the RFP out, get a response, and get the grant.
We're going to just need discussion for later.
Yeah.
So we're letting people know why it's important. Let's put it right behind the ESG program. Okay. Any other additions or corrections to the agenda? So is everybody good with adding that, making that? Okay, thank you. And now public comments. Comments for anything not on today's agenda? See none?
I got one.
Okay.
Oh gosh. West White Salinas resident, president of Salinas Homeless Union. Just curious for maybe some kind of statement in the future, not this meeting, but in the future, I mean, we're doing great stuff for structures and buildings, but that's only going to take care of 5, maybe 10% of everybody outside. And I'd like to know from this body what they'd like to see all the interacting agencies deal with the people that are remaining outside, and how we're going to deal with that in a humane and thoughtful way, positive production, putting them back into society. This is great what you're doing, but we're leaving an awful lot out, and I'd like to hear from this body, what are we going to do about the people left outside?
Thank you. Anyone else?
Quick comment?
Yes.
Supporting all the local initiatives here, but Steve McShane, Salinas District 3, City Council members hoping to hold some kind of a listening session about affordable housing in Salinas for Salinas residents. So if you're interested, come find me. I know we'll make it public at some point, but thanks for supporting for leading down here today.
Anyone else? Yeah. Okay. And anything not on today's agenda? So As chair of MST, I want to let everyone know that MST sent out a press release regarding some of our youth buses that we retire. We sell them, we get like 1,000 bucks. There are conversion projects that will turn them into habitats, homing homes, or they can be used for restrooms and bathroom facilities. I can forward it.
It's already out.
I sent it to Catherine Cemetery. Everyone knows about it. If you have been interested in it, I think that's an opportunity to start doing something very local.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on to, we need a motion to approve our consent agenda, which is our minutes from 11/26.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Orozco, seconded by Mayor Gunter. Any discussion on that, anyone? Seeing no. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, got through that. Approved unanimously. Now going to government shutdown implications. Catherine.
So very briefly, we're in day 31, I believe, of the federal government shutdown. It's the longest shutdown in history, in our history. So the way that it's playing out in homeless programs, right, is specifically with our COC funded programs, which have to draw down funds electronically. And HUD's closed. If you call HUD today, you'll get the field out, you'll get a message saying, sorry, we can't answer any of your questions because we're closed. Right? So that has halted drawdowns. So that means if there's a program that has 2 or 3 programs that are funded through this particular funding stream, and they're advance paying everything and they're not able to get their money back, they can slide into cash flow problems very, very easily. The second piece of that is, if you cast your mind back several months, you approved the 2018 COC project recommendations, and typically, not saying 100% because they are difficult, but typically HUD likes to make announcements around the holiday season, because I think they can get makes them feel in the seasonal spirit, right? But we have heard nothing. So one of 2 things has happened. Either they've made their decisions at the HUD level, but they haven't been able to put out the initial announcement because of the shutdown, which is the preferred scenario, or second, they were in the middle of making their decisions when the shutdown happened. That is extremely problematic because programs that are funded through this funding stream, they operate on different operating years, renewals do, right? So if you have a program that's slated to have an operating year that say ends on January 31 and would start its new renewal year on February 1, but the announcement still hasn't even come out yet. Eventually the announcement will come out, and then there's a technical submission process, and there's a contract execution process. So if you're an agency that's caught up now in a cash flow problem and then has a problem with starting a new operating year, it can really bleed you dry. So those are happening here. Papua Housing Opportunities for People with AIDS, which I just spoke to the local provider this morning, puts out about $15,000 to $20,000 a month in rental assistance, mortgage assistance, things like that for people living in HIV world. Shut down because that is closed. The housing choice vouchers are saved through February, and then there's some reserve processes. CalFresh, they have an advanced allocation through February, but then it rolls into March. And I guess the biggest thing is we all know bureaucracy runs very slow. So if the federal government opens today or tomorrow, it's still going to backlog everything. So everything's going to slow to a crawl space. So just kind of letting everyone know that there are implications that it's more than just federal employees. It's pretty significantly impacted.
Yeah, thank you for that report, because even at the county, at our budget, we were going department by department what the implications. Sometimes you don't realize how much it's going to impact our transportation projects. A lot of the other programs that the county oversees. So for us, it was important in lining as elected officials to get better understand the impact for even the work that we oversee here. Questions on this? Yes,
I just wanted to add that as the Housing Authority, we are funded through the end of February. So all our checks will be going out for the fair landlords and staff. That's what we know as of today. It hasn't changed in the last couple of weeks. We know that we have funding in the end of February. What happens after that, we haven't really, as Kevin mentioned, HUD is closed, so we have no idea. Nobody knows. Just wanted to mention.
Thank you, Manny, for that. Anyone else, questions, comments on this? Well, seeing none then, we're good?
Yeah, and just to let you know, I got a request from the state this morning to kind of put together a pretty cool analysis on, impact, which I sent out just before this meeting, and I think what's happening, they're compiling it by COC to do some federal advocacy, I guess. I think that's what's happening.
Thank you for submitting that on behalf. Would you be able to email that some of that information to all of us?
Yeah, pretty brief. Yeah, there's compiled the whole thing.
But just so us we can get that report, that'd be great. Moving on to, we have a special presentation now.
Well, Darius Brown has replaced Rebecca Irving as our meeting Vento, homeless liaison, so he's just going to introduce himself. There is over there, Darius.
Thank you, Kathy. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. From Monterey County Office of Education. I'm in charge of overseeing the homeless education program for the county and working with all the school districts. Right now, we have a double-sided document going around. Just want to kind of highlight the program goals. So we're really looking at educational outcomes for the students experiencing homelessness throughout the county. And at the same time, we're also trying to figure out the systems of support that are already existing in the county and how we can connect the families to the systems and bring the systems into the school sites. So we really want to improve student educational outcomes from transitional kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade and then up until the 22nd birthday of some students. And then really want to remove all the barriers that families are facing in regards to education. So as you have this handout passed around, please, if you know families experiencing homelessness throughout the county and they're not connected to schools, please reach out to me or reach out to the school district liaisons so we can all work together to support the families in the county. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Can you also just a little bit about your background, what you did before?
Oh, yeah.
Some folks are seeing you for the first time right now. So we want to make sure you were properly introduced and so they can know the work you'll be doing, but some of the work you did for previous county work for.
Yes, so transferring over from Santa Clara County, I served as the homeless liaison for the county for 3 years. And then prior to that, I did some violence prevention work in juvenile hall in San Mateo County. So my background is really direct services to students and families and communities. And I'm really excited to be here with you all and to learn from you guys and just to share best practices.
And perhaps at a future meeting, it would be nice if we could just have a discussion focused on homeless children with you and Cheryl, because there was a recent report that came out and that Cheryl was featured on talking about the high percentage of homeless children we have in Monterey County, and it's just a really important topic. And certainly Monterey County was having some of the highest numbers in the state, that it merits a more in-depth discussion among this body to focus on how we could target those particular needs of our children.
Yes, definitely. And then we are looking at all the school districts for the point in time count. We're looking to counter unsheltered families because we know we have a higher population than what was reported in 2017. So yeah, if you have any questions after the meeting, please just connect with me and we'll touch bases. But we can definitely have a deeper conversation.
Any questions for Darius? Yes, Mayor Gilbert.
The graph on back, is that representing the students that are in school that say are homeless?
So those are the identified students, yes sir, in the county at all the school districts. And you see that number is pretty alarming with 9,000 students identified. So we really want to drive home like, all right, what services do these families have access to and where's the lack of services for this 9,000 student population?
And the schools are collecting this data?
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Darius? Well, Darius, we want to welcome you. We always need partners. We want to embrace you in this effort, and look forward to partnering with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now going on to ESG cash program update. I guess maybe now that Anastasia came over. Anastasia White is now our housing director at the County of Monterey, so we're glad this is a pick up for us. Sorry, City Salinas. Thank you, City.
So anyhow, so a couple of things with our ESG funding, our state ESG funding, just to tie into what Catherine was saying about the federal implications. The state submitted the plan in December, and so all of our state ESG funding is held up in the HUD. rigmarole, and that includes for our warming shelter. So we have been discussing how we can cover the gap for the warming shelter, and we're looking at using city funds, general funds. We've been able to reallocate some of our existing funds in my department to cover through to February. And then we have some funds through our federal entitlement that has already been allocated to CHS. So that would cover February. And I don't know, was this handed out?
Yes, go right.
Oh, okay, there's a handout there that kind of describes some of that. And we are looking at utilizing the cash funds, which the city is the administrator for the California Emergency Solutions and Housing Grant Funds. And so we're going to be continuing to have discussions regarding that. We just received our award announcement last week. We are going to be working towards putting out notices of funding availability similar to what is happening with HEAP funds. So, you know, we'll have a more full update. But in terms of the warming shelter, as many of you know, the city and the county entered into an MOU kind of describing the new shelter construction and trying to preserve the existing shelter through, and we're working to continue operations through to May. So that's what is before you. And then in terms of the
question on that, is it okay?
Yes.
On this, do you anticipate when that contract will be signed? Because I know it's right now it's through the end of February, but I'm the one that sets up all the groups that come in and serve meals, and they're all asking. And I'm saying that the contract hasn't been finalized yet.
So we're looking to see, we are going through our mid-year budget adjustment process. So we're going to be asking for some funds from the city, and also we're reaching out to the state to get a little bit more clarity on the usage of the California Emergency Solutions and Housing Grant. Emergency shelter is an eligible expense. But we just want to make sure that we go through that process, right? So probably in the next week, we have a meeting set up with the state tomorrow to kind of discuss. We're still waiting for our standard agreement that we have to sign before we can allocate anything, but tomorrow we should have a better update on that.
Maybe, yeah, Cheryl, the contract is really, DSS actually contract directly with the provider. And so we recognize that the delay in figuring out financial issues is a challenge. So we're hoping that we expect to have the contract extension once the name that we confirm the funding. So we'll be able to extend through May. However, we usually have further discussion around beyond that, because at this point, that would only get us through May, and our intention would be to have the shelter all year round. So that funding we need to secure and figure out how to approach that. So we're thinking that we're going to try to maybe, well, we'll see, but we have our budget committee process in the county, and then we have our real Florida suit.
I just didn't want to lose the donors that are helping provide food.
Yeah.
It's our expectation, though, that we will moving forward and we'll figure it out.
At least till the end of May, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to collectively work together to talk to philanthropy, because I think it is important to try to maintain the shelter. I know that just a couple of days ago, they had a family of 9 come there.
Where's that Baldwin when we need him?
Where is? The other thing I wanted to mention is just regarding the Lead Me Home plan. I think one thing, just to be careful that I agree we need to update it, but we have stated to the state that our plan is current as part of our cash application. That being said, we actually can use our cash program dollars to update the Believe Me Home plan. And the city had offered to, I think a year ago, we had set aside funding to do that, but I think there was more discussion that happened at the Leadership Council. But should you want us to proceed, and it sounds like we have to do, or, hastily, we could be in a position to have our, consultant come on board and help us. He's very inexpensive too, which is kind of the benefit of me utilizing him. So I just throw that out to the Leadership Council that through cash we'd be willing to fund it, and we can, talk to the state about that and see if they would allow us to just sort of roll into this existing contract that we have to really move it along. So that's, if you wanted to talk about that proposal.
Thank you. We just mentioned you, Dan. You must have, yours must have been ringing about a couple minutes ago. You said only then. But you set us up perfectly to lead into our next added item, right? For Elsa, 2 minutes, let's continue talking about updating the plan.
Just to kind of add on to that, I think we're in year 8 of 10 of the current plan, and I think it's probably no surprise to this group. Things have changed, from 12 years ago or whenever that was put together, and so it really is the right time to revisit that plan and update it. This doesn't affect other funding streams, but I think, especially right now, since it is a technical requirement under the No Place Like Home, and as Michael, our Adult System of Care Director, indicated, it is a requirement, and if we're supposed to submit our application by August, we really are on a tight timeline to get it updated, to be able to then issue an RFP for any potential developer or developers under the No Place Like Home funding that's available. And I think it really sets us time to kind of plan for where we need to be 10 years from now and begin to develop the strategies that are needed to help us achieve that 10-year mark. Because we perceive that additional dollars from the state will be made available to local jurisdictions to kind of continue to address the crisis that we currently have in health and respect and that housing stock available for all levels of affordability. So I just kind of wanted to bring this to the group and for discussion in terms of is this something that the group is agreeable to, and then to talk about the financing. But it sounds like there could be cash dollars available to help finance it, and so maybe Catherine can tell us a little bit about recent bids, or we can go and ask the existing consultant what that cost would be, and our cash money is available to fund 100% of it, then it really doesn't create an issue for the jurisdictions to be able to kind of put money forward. But then this group has to decide too if they want to allocate cash funding for updating a plan versus delivery of services.
And Catherine, do we know what the estimated cost for updating is?
Well, it's not updated. I mean, if you look at the policy, if you're watching policy, and you can see what's coming down the track, clearly, we're going to see more things like No Place Like Home, where this, you can't have anything that's more than 5 years old, blah, 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 blah. And if you look at our current plan, so much has changed, and there's 2 problems with it. So much has changed with the landscape on the ground since it was first initiated, right? And secondarily, our plan is really built in an abstract. It's full of best practices that cannot be achievable in our particular community. It is built for failure, right? So that's just the way that it is. So in order to really meet the actual need and meet criteria such as No Place Like Home and other things coming down the track, what we need is a scrap and a new. That's what we need. My initial, that has particular attention to our climate on the ground. The initial quotes that I'm getting is about 70 grand. I know that I can put 20 towards it through our planning grants. This is the maximum that I can put. There's various ways you can fund this thing. I don't know how much cash you go. I also feel like I'd be great, but you should take it from services. I mean, that's just horrible. And then the other possibility is jurisdictions kicking in for it, on a proportional basis. So, however we want to proceed on that.
And it could be a combination of the health department did receive some planning money as part of the No Place Like Home project, and so some of those dollars could be also used to help create a new leaving home plan as well.
Okay, Megan?
Yeah, I was going to say that we'd be very interested in, I think because CATCH does say the first thing, if you don't have a leaving home plan, is to actually fund that. They want to make sure that it is a comprehensive regional strategy. So I think it would be, even though it would take some from services, I think it's kind of encouraged because they do want to make sure. And so, you know, we would be thrilled to work with the leadership committee. We have a pretty good reputation for doing regional plans. We did the farm worker housing study. We're working on the assessment for fair housing as a regional collaborative with the different jurisdictions who, you know, Seaside, Monterey, Marina, the Housing Authority in the county. We've all kind of collaborated to work on that. So we'd be willing to, if, you know, to offer assistance or to work on that through the cash process.
So why don't I coordinate a meeting, and then we can kind of sit down and work out, you know, pencils and all that kind of stuff? So we'll have a good working effort.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We'll report next month on it. And like, just my thoughts, I think it's, I agree with Megan, it's like, it's a good, and plus, seeing the health department and you, Catherine, that have some monies to kind of share some of the costs, but in light of new possibilities and new money, one, it's just good to update it at this point in time, because of the momentum we have here locally. These meetings weren't this filled a year ago, you know, even 6 months ago. So we have some good momentum going, and so it's a good time to focus on that. But also, in light of the governor just had his budget press conference about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and certainly this is going to remain one of his top priorities. So it kind of reinvigorates us about what other possibilities might lie ahead with this new administration who's just starting out his first term of 4 years. Yes, go back.
Does the group need to approve it as an action item to move it forward to start the process?
Yes.
I was going to ask for clarification just exactly on that, Michael. It's, yes, we can convene a meeting, but it would be great if this group can kind of make a motion to direct staff to work with the city, with the county, to be, and the county is Benito, to be able to move forward with any bids and commencing the work with a monthly update. That's this group.
So moved by Mayor Gunter, as he just told me, and is there a second? By Mayor LeVere. Maybe you want to add?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's just.
Oh, you're just. Okay.
You actually, can you restate the motion?
Restate your motion.
Direct staff to work with stakeholders to solicit bids for developing a new community home plan, and then provide monthly updates to this group.
Okay. It was moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Against? Unanimous. Thank you for that. Moving on. Now we have a lot of different action items on the Homeless Emergency Assistance Program, our HEAP program. And Catherine, we're going to take this one by one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, got a lot of decisions to make, so focus in. So, but first, here's an update about where we are right now. So, the HEAP application was submitted to the state on time. We were notified that we have been approved for funding, 12.5 mil, 11.8 available for programs and projects. The required, I told you last time that I had to go back and forth with some paperwork where I'm doing the back and forth. So we're back and forth now. The funds should be received, they're sticking with that 60-day term. Although I will say I had a conversation yesterday, and now apparently their 60 days is down to 45 days. So that's a good thing. The shelter crisis declarations are documented in the paperwork. And over to one side, you see every city that is declared. Over to the other side, you'll see the cities that did not declare, which are not eligible for capital. I've got a question for a couple cities and a couple people saying, well, what if you want to come in now, right? I have that is a pending outstanding question in HEAP right now because it's built into the paperwork now. I think it would be okay, but it would have to happen relatively quickly, and I'd have to go through some kind of process with the state to have them included. So what follows are the decision points needed in order to finalize and approve a HEAP request proposal or an RFP. I have also developed an application which I'm not putting forward with HEAP unfair. And you've discussed a few of these items previously and wanted to revisit them. Others you have not discussed, although you know they were coming. And just to be honest, delays in decisions today will result in delays in the local process. You have 11 decisions to make. Decision number 1. Previously, the Leadership Council voted to include Category 3 homeless youth as an eligible population with a maximum of 5% targeted to this population if recommended. But the Leadership Council wanted to revisit this before final approval. So I have built in that 5% of the slides that will follow, but again, you want to revisit it before you absolutely finalize it. And just as a reminder, Category 3 is homeless under other federal statutes, which are homeless families and youth who experience a long-term period without living independently in permanent housing, have experienced persistent instability as measured by frequent moves over such period or double triple up. That's at 9,000 people that Darius was talking about previously. I also would like to remind you that there are several examples that were given during previous Leadership Council meetings. And in every example, those people really were not Category 3. They would have went up to Category 1 or literally homeless. I want to throw that out there. But you do need to make a final decision as to whether or not you want to approve Category 3 as an eligible population that may receive a maximum of 5% of key funding for that population, or not to approve Category 3 as a definition as an eligible population for key funding.
Okay. Just to keep us moving along, I have a motion that we include the option 1. Now, if there's a second, then we'll open for discussion. Second by Mary Gunter. Now, any questions or comments on this? Megan.
Is this for both Monterey and San Diego
Yes.
counties?
Sure. Okay. Others?
Please.
Yes, again.
And I realize this is maybe isn't going to work with the timetable, but if we're going to make 11 decisions and we're going to see them one at a time, shouldn't we actually see all the 11 decisions we're going to have to make and then come back and go through them instead of going through, because we don't know, making a decision on one, does that tie our hands in making a decision on something later?
Well, I would say let's keep going through one by one, and if we see that we have to modify previous one, we can go back and
Okay.
we can modify that whole.
And just so you know, that's all that is included in your packet. The decision that you have to make. I just put them up here so that everybody sees.
Otherwise, we're going to give it all options, it's going to be more confusing at the end. Just one, and then we can revisit the one we need to. Right, yes.
Catherine, you said something that I'm curious about. You said that there were a lot of examples given, but in those examples, they weren't really Category 3. Those all would have been like genuine, like.
Yeah, yes.
Can you give an example? Because I'm just scratching my head.
There are examples of like people who were living, in sheds, things of that nature. All of those are Category 1. They all would have been literally homeless. They would not fall into Category 3. I mean, they may be counted on the school district side of Category 3, right. But as far as our purposes for housing programs, they would have been counted as Category 1.
Okay.
Others? Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye. Wait, motion was option
1. Option 1.
Can you go back a slide?
Come on, Elliot, you're going back.
Wake up.
All those against? Okay, carries unanimously. We're going to keep going through this, everybody, gotta follow us.
Okay, so then this is on the Monterey County side, right? So this is the complete budget available for projects and programs for Monterey County, which is 10% for projects service related, 10% for rental assistance, 65% for capital, 10% for unaccompanied youth, and then 500,000 available that may be applied for Category 3, but that's not guaranteed. The regulatory committee may say that we want to move that money around. So that comes as a slate. That's the Monterey County side. So I just want to get a firm approval that that's what you want. And then
These are the percentages that last, was it November meeting, we came up with this number. So just to refresh everybody's memory.
Yes.
And the question is if we want to modify this?
Correct.
And have a discussion or finalize it?
Correct.
Which is, so let's open up discussion on this. Megan?
One quick question. Catherine, how are you accounting for the admin cost? Is that?
No, this is after admin.
After admin, okay.
We just put the admin aside.
Yeah.
Okay.
5%. Okay, others wishing to modify this?
Quick question, Catherine, can you confirm the bottom two could theoretically all be service related? So service related could theoretically come to 2.5.
Correct. It all depends on what the programs, all the certain programs are.
As long as it's targeted.
Others? Okay. Well, let's have let's try it. If there's a motion to approve, what we agreed to last time by Mayor LeBaron, is there a second?
Second.
We'll take Mayor Orozco this time. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries unanimously.
Perfect. You guys are, you're on fire.
There we are.
So the decision number 3 is, you made a decision to place a little over 1.8 million available for projects in San Benito County, but you haven't prioritized that, right? So you want to be consistent. The state is looking for consistency, right? So if you use the same model, the same percentages that flow from slide 1, right? That out of that 1.8 million, 10% needs to be for unaccompanied homeless youth, which is 187, 109. That's required, right? And then you want to reserve 93,000 for that 5% for category 3 if possible, right? No guarantee on that one. But you need to figure out how you want to thread the rest of your percentages between services, rental assistance, and capital.
Okay, let's hear from Jim.
So we're having a meeting of our group on February the 11th, and this is the topic of that meeting. We could give you some preliminary numbers in the next week that would be what I call flags. But if there's a possibility for us to sit with our group on the 11th of February and have this particular discussion, we can do that. We did talk about it at our last meeting. We did decide to allocate more money towards homeless youth. And we have had some things that have come up in San Benito County in the last month that in terms of availability of some land and what we might be able to do with that. So we need to have that discussion with the group. We still want to do, if possible, within the funding, some kind of outreach services to those homeless people who are not sheltered. So that's kind of where we are. If you need something more urgently than February the 11th, we'll certainly work on that.
Well,
I can't issue an RFP.
Okay, let's say this. Well, first of all, just a matter of background for folks. San Benito is on like a different track because they've worked on their shelter with CDBG funds and other things, and so now with these new dollars, they've got their shelter in place. They want to do some other services, so they're trying to do things that are really differently because we're working on shelters and working on these other things. But what we could say, just to keep us on timeline, is whatever we vote today, that whatever percentages they decide could just be what we adopt if we respect whatever percentages they come up with on their meeting on February 10th.
February 11th. But if you need something before then, I'm willing to talk with a small group tomorrow and put some numbers together, or we can go with the numbers that we have submitted before.
Okay.
But I'm not,
because we're not going to meet for another month, and we're under a short time.
March, yeah.
So it's kind of a moving target for us. only because things kind of keep happening. And people start stepping up and saying, how about this and how about that? So we're trying to be flexible. So if we can say, here's our numbers today, it's a possibility that they change over the next few months, but not significantly. That would be helpful to us, help us figure out what we want.
Okay, let's go to Mayor LeBaire, then Mayor Gunter, then Elsa.
Just two questions. The RFP, what they want, that have to be out?
Well, that all depends on your decisions. I mean, I have timelines at the end of this thing, depending upon whether or not all the decisions.
If you got all the decisions today, when were you planning the RFP?
Well, my estimated timeline, assuming that all the decisions have been made, is laid out right about here.
Okay, could the motion be made to assign some percentages right now that are very close to where you're thinking, with the ability to come back after you have your meeting with more concrete numbers and update it? Because then it would just be changing percentages.
It would just give us a general idea, but knowing that he might be adjusted some.
We can give you the current numbers that we're working on.
Okay.
We do want to seriously look at this option of the availability of a couple of acres that has come up in the last month that can be very helpful for us in terms of providing more housing for people with homes.
So you got any of those numbers generally?
I can have them sent to Catherine before the end of the day. I haven't had them.
Okay. Mayor, let's go to Mayor Gunter, then Elsa.
I think us as a group have to respect San Benito's ability to be so far ahead of the rest of us. I mean, we've been on that train. But I think if he's going to send the numbers, we're going to have to respect what they send us. And it's going to come from the committee that by the end of the day, you'll have your numbers to plug in. So I'll blindly vote on this faith that they've done the good work and we can move forward if we possibly can.
Yeah,
so we're not stuck.
Oh, no, I think that'll work fine.
Okay.
Just with the understanding that the two bottom numbers, again, the state is looking for.
Those stay where they're at.
They need to stay where they're at.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're okay with that. So.
And we've seen some of the previous numbers at our meetings here.
Yeah.
We've seen their work proposal, yeah.
And if Jim sends them to me, then what I can do is, that once I get them, I can just put it out there for you.
Perfect, yeah, we'll email it to everybody. Elsa?
That's what I was going to suggest in terms of process, that maybe there could be an email vote, or even if they still wanted to go through the process, I mean, through the addendum, you know, after you publish an RFP, you can always go back and make changes to them through an addendum.
Okay,
There's
others?
that opportunity.
Megan?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the same thing as Elsa, that it doesn't need to be set in stone. These are our guidelines, parameters, but after you do the reading, you know, or the NOFA, you might reopen it, you might amend it, you might allow for flexibility after the fact.
Others? Seeing none, then, Jim, if you could submit your numbers to Catherine by what, by tomorrow?
Yes.
I'm trying to get it right now.
Okay.
Can we hold this one while he's doing that and Brian come back?
That doesn't mean anybody's going to respond to me.
You can adopt those numbers, but then with the caveat that they'll also be emailed to everyone, so we can just see what those final numbers are.
But we see this, and I'm sure you all see the same thing. It's kind of a moving target. We're going to figure out what's happening as things come up. And that's kind of how we've done business for the last 5 years. Go where the opportunities are, explore those opportunities, see if it works. If it works, we play go someplace else.
Okay, so Jim, you make the motion.
Jim's a non-voting member.
Oh, it's a non-voting member. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Mayor LeBaire, moved, second by Gunter. Other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. There's no opposition. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay, the decision number 4 is the language of the draft RFP says, that I just put it in there, that all heat funded transitional and permanent supportive and rapid rehousing projects must only accept homeless participants through the local coordinated entry system. This is not apply to emergency shelter programs. Coordinated entry processes help communities prioritize assistance based upon vulnerability and severity of served needs to ensure that people who need assistance in those who receive it in a timely manner. The state is expecting us to coordinate peak activities within our existing service network or system. Coordinated entries are a huge part of that to ensure that the most vulnerable people are placed or are streamlined into housing whenever possible, and to minimize cherry picking of clients. So that is what the language in the RFP says at this point.
Okay. Yes, Robin. Yes, moved by Robin, seconded by
Question?
Hunter. Yeah, we got a motion second, now discussion. Go ahead.
My question is coordinated entry in this case limited to just Monterey, or is it Monterey and San Benito?
Every decision you're making is both.
Both, okay.
Yeah. Okay, other questions? Okay, yes.
I have a question where it pertains to rapid rehousing. I know sometimes like going through coordinated entry, they rate lower, right, than people who are actually ready to be rapidly rehoused into permanent housing. So is there going to be like, is it going to follow the state coordinated entry guidelines that we already established for rapid rehousing?
Okay, Elsa.
I have a question. So, as of January 1st, area hospitals, California hospitals are required to assure that individuals that are being released from the emergency department have an address to go to, are fed, clothed, etc. So my question is, for those instances when somebody's being released and just needs a place to go for the night at a, let's say, a shelter, does that mean that they would be precluded from being able to access a vacant bed because they're not in the coordinated entry?
No. We do get what should happen in an emergency shelter is one of the first things that should happen in an emergency or warming shelter is that there's an assessment done to get them into coordinated entry when they first get. Yeah.
Okay, so that could be part of the process.
Oh, absolutely.
Jim.
So my question is, as I recall, Catherine, in our whole person care projects, we're also using coordinated entry systems. So
yes, it's all one.
This would include all.
Other questions, back to Megan, and then Mary Beth.
I was just going to suggest that maybe some administrative money is set aside to train up those organizations that are, I don't know if all the organizations are familiar with coordinated entry or have systems, but we might want to make sure that, some of our organizations that aren't, tied into the system get trained, get access to the software and support.
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, the coalition offers free training all the time for that.
Okay, good. So we'll follow up on that. Mary Beth.
The question is, the council had voted previously on this discussion of prioritizing families first.
Did you speak up?
No, that has not been a decision. It's been a discussion, but it has not been a decision.
No, I thought we voted on that.
No, it has been a discussion, but it has not been a decision.
Okay, so it's not a decision though. If that was a decision made by this, would that affect?
Yes. We would.
So we would not have the ability as the local representatives to prioritize families and first for services?
No. Families and certain subpopulations get extra bonus points, we call them, to coordinated entry. But if you prioritize only families into programs, then you're not touching single individuals who are on the street, which are by far, the highest percentage of homeless people.
We talked about families who were homeless.
That's exactly what I said. Is that by far the people who are suffering from homelessness in this community are single unaccompanied individuals. I mean, there are families, but there are more options for families than single unaccompanied individuals. You've discussed it, but you've never made any decisions around it.
Okay, I do disagree with that assessment. I believe that I thought we had to vote on that. It was understood on the steep funding that we were prioritizing those because we recognize that we could not meet everybody's needs with this amount of money, that it was used for one-time thing, and that the maximum benefit was when you helped families, women and children, making sure those children stayed in school, making sure that they were not affected by the mental issues that are caused from any long-term homelessness when you're a kid, and that those benefits were way more important in making sure that we're helping.
It was a discussion by some of our board members, but it wasn't like a motion and we made a decision. Is it distinguished? But it was a pretty lengthy discussion on it, for sure. Other folks on this motion? See none?
Who's the second?
It was Mayor Gunter and Robin was the
Robin was
motion.
first.
Oh, God, second.
All those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries unanimously. Next one.
Second is deed restrictions. So the state is leaving it up to us, communities. They agree conceptually that yes, there should be deed restrictions. This is something you guys are just going to need to decide. So what I put in the draft RFP, which I can change of course, is that heat funded capital projects for construction, acquisition, or rehab will require a 10-year deed restriction or covenants, conditions, and restrictions. These funded projects must utilize land, property, buildings, or the approved deed contracted activities for the 10-year duration. Deed restrictions must be recorded in closing documents with copies provided to us. And I pulled 10 years because HUD is 30, right? 10 years is a third of that. It seemed fair, right? And that's why I did. I know that there's been a lot of different conversation, but again, the premise of it is this is 2 years of funding. If you have no deed restrictions, what that means is you could potentially have an agency who says, I'm going to buy this single-family home for $500,000 and use it for a program, and then at the end of 2 years, I'm going to sell it and put the money in my general fund. That's not proper, right? And so you want to have some restriction on it, and so I just came up with it.
And just by, again, refresh your memory, we did have started the discussion in November. I know Mayor Ignacio Velasquez brought up, I think Matt Webster when he was there, and we just decided we're going to bring this back this month. So 10% discussion on that. Yes.
You have the 10-year restriction. What if you receive funding from another source and doesn't want their money tied up for 10 years?
You're still stuck. It's in for a penny, in for a pound type situation. We have a lot of projects that are like that. There's a deed restriction from the first 30 years here, but not here. You're still stuck with your deed restriction. Or blessed with your deed money.
Yes, let's go, Megan, next.
Is it possible if you already have an existing deed restriction due to affordability that you'd be exempted? Because I know just when I worked in redevelopment, we had a lot of messy situations where you had layered deed restrictions and it was really difficult, especially if they wanted to refinance for rehab type stuff. So I'm wondering if we could have an exemption if you're already deed restricted.
I think if you're already deed restricted, you would just include that in the application and, you're already there.
Yeah, just as long as we exempt them from this. Because,
from the recording, yes.
Yeah, because you don't want to have to layer the.
No, absolutely.
We could perhaps entertain a motion with a 10-year, but exemption that there's already deed restriction.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I should have written it that way. I didn't think about that.
Okay, other discussion. Was somebody over here? Okay, let's go.
My concern is theoretically you're saddling this organization with an 8-year unfunded restriction for use of the property. That just doesn't, I agree with the deed restriction, but you're only paying program funds that 10% for 2 years. So now what? I might put a clause that say contingent upon future funding, because I think that's unfair.
Let's go to Mayor LeBaron, then we'll go to Robin.
My only thought was, Lisa Elsa, mentioned on that Leave Me Home updates, or no, you mentioned, Catherine, that we're probably going to be looking at 5-year updates. So if we are looking at that in 5 years, we may have a different use for that property. Maybe the deed restrictions should be more allowing the different uses, as long as they're meeting the same type of goal. I am concerned with what you had just mentioned, but on these projects, it should be what happens in 5 years. For example, we have a temporary shelter that's meeting a need. We have a Leave Me Home Plan update, and what it actually is saying, we need some single units. And we have this property, but if there's a deed restriction, we couldn't get a developer to come in and do it. I don't want to be lost.
Well, those would be contract amendments, right? So just like right now, we have an obligation through the McKinney Act, to increase CD, right? For state transitional housing, right? You can go back to ACG and say, so many years later, can I have permission to use it for this purpose, right? So let's say in 5 years, say it was 10 years, and then in 5 years that happened, that exact same scenario happened. That organization can come to the leadership council and say, I want to give a waiver, I want to give permission to change the use of this from emergency shelter to whatever, right? And if the leadership council grants that, then it's a waiver and it's a good to go. The leadership council says no, we answer that.
Okay, let's go to Robin, Elliot, and then back.
Yeah, my comment was that Catherine's deed restrictions, as I understand them, can be amended by the party that required the deed restriction. And the scenario you mentioned is probably one more likely to happen than the one Catherine mentioned, which is after two years of heat funding, you don't have any renewable or sustainable funding for the project. So we want the property to stay for the purposes of homeless. So you might do something else with the property as long as it was for homeless purposes, but you couldn't just do something altogether different, like turn it into something that was for not homeless purposes. But then, again, if you don't have sustainable funding, people would come back to the council and say, I don't have operating funds for a shelter, but I could do something less intensive operating costs, like a day center or something.
I think that's good clarification. Robin, let's go to Elliot.
The exact same issue. Except that
Ditto from Elliot, yes, Catherine.
Having developed many housing projects with state funding for capital projects, a 10-year restriction is actually completely minimal. Usually they're 30-year restrictions, and there is no ongoing funding for operations. And when you do these applications, I presume that you're going to require people to show, if they're doing a capital project, how they're going to be supporting it for a minimum of 10 years. So that I have lots and lots of projects like this, and you have to show where you're going to have operational funding for 30 years in the projects. And I've gone back to the county and gotten a few things changed, and the city of Salinas has changed things from permanent to transitional, transitional to permanent. But it's actually highly unusual to only require a 10-year restriction.
Okay.
So it's really capital funding. So people shouldn't buy property unless they know what they're going to be doing with it for 10 years.
Okay, so let's entertain a motion to adopt this with the exception there's already a deed restriction. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Elliot, seconded by Manik. Enough discussion?
And as Ronald mentioned, that the council, leadership council will be able to amend that if someone brought that forward. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
No, that's correct. That's built into the deed restriction. It already is.
And in our understanding, if there's a situation like that, we note at this point at this time. Okay, motion, there's been a motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries unanimously.
Yeah, I'm proud of you guys.
No, there's one time.
Oh, what's the next extension?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, got it.
One.
That's got to come back for next month.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I got to ask first.
So the next one's about prevailing wage, which kind of went back and forth, and I had to kind of pull through some other funded communities to see what they were doing. Because the question is, this is public money, right? So does it trigger prevailing wage? And Pete, who doesn't want to commit to that, right? So I want you to do it perfectly. Some of the other communities are doing a statement like this in the RFP, which I just picked up because I didn't know which way to go. And then the language in the draft RFP is that heat funds are considered public funds and may trigger prevailing wage requirements for capital projects. It is recommended that the applicant consult with an attorney and or the Department of Industrial Relations to make a final determination on paying state prevailing wages. And the applicant will be asked to document the final determination in the submitted project application. So if they think they're exempt from that, then they need to supply documentation that says they're exempt. But what we don't want to do is get ourselves or the community in a pickle where something should have been raised and it wasn't. Even if the state is saying, oh, we're not going to buy into this, it's still public money and it still triggers.
And these are issues that will come up when those kind of capital projects
absolutely
break ground, or before they break ground. Discussion on this point. So this is just that language included in the
well, yeah, either this language or you may decide to just say No, these are prevailing wages, and, you know, you must, it's automatically triggered, and you must do prevailing wages. But I think it's better.
It's more
to have some
advisory,
more flexibility.
advisory, yeah, more flexibility, and I think that's, might be a better approach to take. Let's entertain a motion to approve this document. In a second, then we'll open for discussion. Is there a motion? First by Mayor Rivera, second by Mayor Gunter. Okay, let's go to Robin.
Just for clarification, so under this language, two applicants could take two different tacks.
Correct.
And one could provide a legal opinion that it's not prevailing, and the other would say what legal opinion, or just take the opinion that it is.
Correct, or an agency could say, you know how it's very complicated how you can use volunteer labor, but you have to prove it by a very complicated manner, right? Then they would have to, if they wanted to do that, then they would have to prove that this is how we're going to document this.
So questions, what happens then if they are challenged by another party, the non-prevailing wage? And should there be language that none of those funds can defend the suit, or what happens if they lose the suit, and where does the money go? Does it have to be repaid to the state, or is that not part of? I mean, it's a little bit of a question. I don't know. It's tricky in terms of if there's any payback or who pays for the defense.
I mean, I can include in the contractual language, right? That funds cannot be used to defend criminal cases.
It'd be a civil case, right?
Or civil cases, excuse me.
But could it trigger payback of the funds, so the funds are lost to the community?
I mean, technically, if you look at it purely, right? Yes, if you receive public funds and you should be prevailing wage and you didn't use prevailing wage and you're proven you didn't, you can be sanctioned and you have to pay back. But there are those situations where you don't trigger prevailing wage. So it's all about proving it out. And what I think probably what you're getting me to think is that when I receive those applications and describe it as I should run as an attorney. There are explanations. I should run as an attorney.
To make sure there's consistency.
Yeah, to make sure it's consistent with law.
We're going to go Elliot, Mayor Gunter, and then back.
For payback, I'm assuming the contracts will require that the organization be responsible for any, or the applicant be responsible for any market exceptions.
Oh, yeah,
For any defense or any payback.
Oh, right.
Okay, Mayor Gunter.
Well, we'll throw a real big kink in all this, who's going to sue who. My young friend back here is going to the prison to have these houses built for free. We're going to pay the guys at the prison prevailing wage?
No, they would have to document how they would be exempt from that.
Okay.
That's some kind of a program.
Just making sure.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get an opinion on a prevailing wage thing right now. And my suggestion is you will not be able to resolve this in the applications. That you'll have to just have a blanket statement in there that says these projects will be prevailing wage unless you can prove otherwise, because it's going to depend upon, are you doing rehab, are you doing new construction, where it is, Fort Ord triggers prevailing wage, kind of everywhere for new construction. So it's really going to vary, and I doubt if you'll be able to judge these applications based on this. So my suggestion is just put in a statement that says prevailing wage unless you can prove otherwise.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I'm fine with this language.
Yeah, I think you already moved it. Gunter, you already seconded. Anyone else on discussion on this?
Yeah.
Yes. Dan.
Robin makes a good point that you consider some statement that in the event of a dispute, no heat funds can be utilized for your defense, something like that. Or is that already assumed in the application?
Maker of the motion, you good with that language? Yeah, that's amended by the maker of the motion and the secretary. Anyone else?
Did we add to the motion and the applicant will be responsible for any penalties or paybacks?
Okay, we got that noted. The maker of the motion and secretary also agree to include that language. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Guys, it's so close. So decision number 7 is participant grants. This is something you have not discussed previously. So this has to do with transitional permanent supported or other permanent housing programs, not emergency shelters and not services only, okay? So what the language in the RFP is, again, to be consistent, right, is that heat funded transitional, permanent supportive, and other permanent housing programs are required to have signed occupancy agreements or leases or subleases with program participants residing in their housing. Transitional, permanent, supportive, and other permanent housing projects may charge program participants a monthly rent pursuant to CFR 578.77, which is very, very standard. These heat-funded program projects are not required to impose rents on program participants as a condition of residing. So if you don't want to charge any rent, you don't have to, right? But if you do, if you are going to impose rent, they may not exceed the highest of 30% of the household's adjusted monthly income, or 10% of the household's monthly income. If it was like a family, you could go with multiple services, you go 10%, right? Or if a household is receiving payments for welfare assistance from a public agency, and a part of that payment is specifically designated by the agency to meet the household's housing costs, the portion of the payment that is designated for those housing costs can be applied. This is extremely standard, and it is important that you codify it in some way, because you don't want somebody saying, I want to do a permanent housing program or a transitional housing program, and I'm going to charge people $600 or $700 a month rent. You know, if you don't include that in this, that you can set that kind of dynamic. Not good, but it's a possibility.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve and second, and then we'll have discussion? Is there a motion? Moved by Gunter, second by? Thank you. Gentlemen, how would you vote? Okay, don't be scared over here. Okay, discussion on this. On the motion and second. Yes, let's go with Elliot and then with Jeff.
Just one question more for our rapid rehousing program. Would this cause any challenge with the rapid rehousing program?
No.
You got your answer, short.
I believe there might be room to put a maximum occupancy or program participation fee in there. So 30% not to exceed a certain dollar amount. I could be wrong, but I think the Housing Authority, it looks at that number now. I know we're capped at 30% not to exceed like $758. I don't know if that would be worthwhile or valuable to consider here.
I know that you're capped in VA. HUD doesn't cap, and I spent, just so you know, I spent 2 years tracing down the answer to this question, which was, with HUD, it took me 2 years to find out the actual answer, which was, my question was, is there a maximum income level for a homeless person going into a program? And the answer was no, and I responded, wait a minute. So you're telling me that somebody can be earning $100,000 a year and still come into a housing program? And they said yes, but remember, you don't have a cap on your 30%. So if you're making if you're making $100,000 a year, 30% of your adjusted monthly income will be so high that it will discourage that person, right? If you have a cap, then that person who's making $100,000 a year can come into your program and pay $700 a month rent. So I say go with a consistent plan. That's just me.
That's a good clarification on that form.
So just to clarify, if you have a double occupancy home or triple occupancy, which you have separate individuals and income sources, each one applies at 30%.
Correct.
Okay. Other discussion? See none? All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, approve the general project contract. And this is, there was so much, but I didn't include it in this, but it is in your package. And this is basically a sample contract that will be executed between the administrative entity and the project once it is approved, right? And the position basically is that any, that any organization that's going to receive public money, right, should be set up in such a way that they can accept a basic contract, like they should have insurance, but they should, have the basic stuff. And, the state's, he wants to be flexible, but it doesn't want to be foolish, right? So included in the package is a sample of the contract language, and depending upon what the actual project is, like if there was deed restriction codicils or something, we'd incorporate that as well, but it kind of depends on what that project is.
Okay. Discussion on this contract language. Yes.
It seems standard for government funding out just to make sure they can look at it and get any comments, review that.
You want to address that?
It's standard.
Standard, yeah.
Yeah, it's standard. It's taken right from county language.
County language.
I work with the county attorney on it.
Okay, so you basically said, yeah, thank you for reading that. We have a question over here. Yes, Robin, and then we'll go over here.
In section 2.04, it says the coalition shall certify and then promptly submit. Can we get a time frame on promptly? Everything else is like 10 days, 30 days, but this promptly is not defined.
Well, that's because I don't know.
I suggest 10 days.
Yeah, I would say 10 days.
Okay, we'll add that in a motion with that modification. Let's go here.
You're doing construction work, I assume, of course, the construction costs of insurance and so on will be incorporated into the proposal, so that your requirement for insurance, certain service coverage and so on, if it's specific to a project, that insurance costs will be incorporated into the project cost.
Yeah, when the application goes out, you'll see that there's two budgets. There's one budget to be proposed if your services are rental assistance, and then there's a capital budget. And the capital budget's like 4 pages long. It goes into high level specificity. And payment will be operated on if your services or rental assistance, it's October, so you're billing for September type thing. And capital will be paid upon milestones, and those milestones are asked for in the application.
Okay. Questions? Back to Robin? No, anywhere?
I got one more. If a project fails to invoice within 10 days, for whatever reason, they're not out the money, right? They could do it late or...
No, they're not out the money, but they're going to be out the timely payment. They could be out the timely payment. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but no, they wouldn't be out the money.
Because things happen.
That would be harsh.
And is there like at the end of the contract, so many days where, because you're going to want to settle out everything?
Well, here's the thing about that. It's a good question, but I want to kind of put it together with the interest question. Because we've gotten approval that we can use any compiled interest to funnel back into programs. But the kicker is, you got to spend every dollar that last day, right? So we're going to have later, right? We're going to have to come up with some way to project interest, right? And what the will of the council is about where you want to target it, and at the same time, be addressing closeouts.
Okay. Let's entertain a motion with that one little clarification on 10 days instead of promptly. Moved by Robin, is there a second? Okay, thank you.
Who was the second?
I don't think Kurt's a vote. Are you doing it? Sorry.
Okay. Motion second, all those in favor? Aye. Those against? Abstentions, motion carries unanimously. 3 more to go.
Okay, you're almost done. So, decision number 9 is the project selection process, which again is long. So it is in your packet. So if you want to it is in that where it says approve what your decision making are. It's under approved project selection process. Starts at the bottom of the page. And what it basically does is it goes over, that this RFP is competitive, that this is the people of points, where the points go, that there will be an objective ranking review panel that is convened, and what that means is it's people who are not having anything invested in potential benefits. If there's a problem doing that, I don't foresee. I'm working with other counties, so maybe we can swap out people, right? That all of that information will come before the Leadership Council for final selection. It's kind of the project selection process. And when it comes to the Leadership Council, the Leadership Council can approve in total, can modify as chosen, or potentially scrap it. That is that.
Okay, discussion on this item. You have a motion and second. Okay, let's go to Megan.
Yeah, I had
questions, because I'm sorry, I didn't see it in the packet for us, but one thing is, can we ask in the application process, how does this need, like, and maybe it is in there, but how does it need a regional, how are you moving the needle regionally so we don't get into, just funding a project that may or may not make a regional difference?
It does. There's a question that talks about how does your proposed project fit into the broader picture?
Okay, and then the other thing is it possible for the leadership council to see the recommendations, but kind of in a way look at it from a holistic standpoint, because the way that these projects interface with each other, they might score as an individual application very well, but they may not be kind of, if that makes sense. I mean, like San Benito really looked at how these things are working with each other to move their regional needle. And so I'm wondering if the leadership council would be able to see how these projects work off of each other and maybe someone ranked higher, but ultimately it doesn't fit well with the other projects to make it, move the needle, and another project which might score less is actually a better fit of that puzzle. Because in a way it's kind of like a puzzle that we're putting together.
Well, I don't know how that can be done unless the leadership council serves as a ranking panel, and that will be appropriate.
Well, not to serve as a, because we're doing this because we're trying to show a fair process to keep. But keep is pretty flexible, and I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, we're ranking and reviewing at the individual level, but we want to have a lens of a regional approach. And so is there an opportunity in the selection process to allow the leadership council to look at it from a regional perspective, so we just don't get hung up on individual projects that may or may not move the regional?
Well, the individual project recommendations will come from the leadership council, and then the leadership council can do whatever lens they choose to make any modifications they want to make. I would sit down with one of them. What I mean?
Robin, then Mary.
But rather than your suggestion, I like the idea, but rather than having the leadership council do it at that level, can questions be built into project overview or project description that would ask questions about collaboration and synergy and things of that nature? So it's already built into the application process. It doesn't have to be done then at a leadership level. Understanding the leadership.
Yeah, and I can go back and look. I mean, I think I built that in, but I can go back and look and see. And again, I didn't bring the application forward because there are people sitting in this room who are needing to apply for them. I don't think it's fair to kind of put it out early. But I think I've addressed those. I'll go back and look at the all of them come.
Okay, Mary.
A couple questions. So one, is the rating panel, the ranking panel, their decision is the awards?
No, their decision is the recommendations to you.
To the body, then I want to make very clear.
Yeah, correct. No, it's not the award at all.
And the body does have the ability to, they don't have to go with the ranking panel.
Correct.
They don't believe that is needed.
That is correct. Now, what the state would say is that you would want to have a justifiable reason for modification, right? But absolutely, that's your decision making.
Kevin, go ahead.
Continuing from that, maybe these are already understood, but just to confirm that the rating panel be approved by the council, and any council members, leadership council members applying for heat funding, conflict out of the discussion and approval.
Yes, absolutely. The panel, once selected, will probably be sent through email, right? And everybody's vetted that there's no conflicts of interest. I am always looking for people who have, experience in homelessness and housing, right? But if they themselves, either on a professional, if they work for an agency that is applying, wants to apply, they cannot sit on that record. If they sit on the board, they cannot. If they have a spouse that sits on a board, if they, they need to, and they all sign conflicts of interest declaration before serving.
Mayor Gunter.
Make a motion.
Moved by Mayor Gunter, seconded by Maybe the mayor?
Oh, you guys.
Oh, here, you guys can take, other voting members. Mr. Pacheco.
You're a white guy.
Cheryl, can I get a show up for Cheryl? Okay, Cheryl gets a second.
All right, you're in.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those against? Abstentions? Okay.
You were almost done. So directly underneath that section is the appeals process, right? And the appeals process basically levels out that, you know, the agency cannot appeal just because they don't like the decision, right? That's not how this works, right? They have to be able to prove that the decision was unfair. Bless you. And that has to be documented, and that appeal has to be based only upon information that was contained in their application. They cannot submit additional information, right? You know, so in other words, you know, it's just like any other funding stream. You can't come forward and say, my project was worthy, and, you know, shame on you for not funding me. That doesn't, you know, we're going to get a lot more applications than we have money to go around. They're going to be hard decisions. But we do need to have an appeal process. And if there is an applicant that, if you did have, let's say, 5 people on a rank and review panel, and 3 of them had self-confliction and kind of, you know, push their own little projects through, and people could prove that, there would be an appeal. I'm not saying that would ever happen, but we do need to have an appeal process in the process.
Due process.
Prepared, right.
Dan Bowler.
Yeah, my issue is with the word unfair. I think that's a very ambiguous term. Maybe it's standard language in this kind of environment, but we're grant makers over at our shop, and so we would actually probably want to define that and not even use the word unfair. That the evidence that the process was subject to, you know, bullet point, conflict of interest, not properly scored improperly based on some. But I just think to put the word unfair leaves open anybody unhappy just saying, well, this wasn't fair. And there needs to be some, I think there needs to be some articulated criteria that explains what really the grounds for an appeal would be rather than just unfair. That sounds like a gripe, and it leaves open a lot of appeals that should be heard.
Yeah, we don't have county council with us to give us some language suggestions here, so we have to see. We have to think about
it was unfair that there was road construction on my way out here. And you're in charge of the entire county, or you were. I'm just surprised you were allowed that to happen.
That's unfair. Okay, other discussions or suggestions on this? Mary Beth.
So I do have a question on, so if the appeals committee, which is 3 voting members, 1 non-voting member from the rating panel, they're making the ultimate decision, wouldn't it be better if they brought a recommendation for the council to approve? Because we would, unless that decision is first run by a council, we could be put on liability from people making a different decision without us doing. So that'd be my only concern, that any decision made in the appeals process, minimum would have to be run by either county council or a council, that the process was done correctly and doesn't put us in a position. Otherwise, reinforced.
I don't have any problem with the decision coming from the council at all. I correct that immediately.
Okay. Recommendation then would be to have the appeals committee bring their recommendation for the process to the board for final decision.
You got that, Hannah?
Yeah, and I'm also, hear Dan very clearly, I'm just struggling to figure out what to replace with.
Well, what we could do is agree to just have Catherine fine-tune that language with county council, and then just email all of us, just so we don't have to get around to come.
I would just like, if a motion could include approval subject to more detail being applied to the
so moved.
Unfair.
So moved with
in the box score?
Mayor DeBear's suggestion. So moved. Second. Other discussion.
There's a comment back here, Lou.
Yes, sorry.
So I have a question. So if the agency, they apply, they get denied. So will there be like a statement that comes along with the denial letter stating why they didn't receive funding? Like would they get a, let's say that we decided to do it, China Center, the Learning Center. So our score was maybe like 50 or something. Would you let us know what our score was and the reason why we were denied it? So we'll have a reason to come back and say it's unfair or something like that, or would it be?
I mean, I can include that. I mean, typically it doesn't work that way. I mean, typically people are just notified that they were not selected for funding. You know, the information about the actual project selected will be, you know, available through this body. So anyone who's interested, you know, would either come here or look on our website, because that's where we keep all the inter-council stuff. So, you know, that seems to be plenty sufficient.
Right, and there's also a concern about this from an attorney's point of view. The more you start laying out and it's insufficient explanation, it creates, I think, from our point of view, creating more complications for us.
Right.
You know, if there is a legal dispute. Other discussions? There's been a motion, second. All those in favor? Oh, okay. We got to speak up here.
I just wanted to make a comment that what we do with our action plans is we make the rating evident, so everyone sees where they fell into their scoring, so then it's clear, like, the reason why you didn't get funded is this was a cutoff and you were under the cutoff. And usually, you get a few squawkers, but usually I think when people see that, it's easier.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing. You know, let's just look at services on Monterey County side. $1 million in services. It's 2 years. So you're talking about $500,000 a year, you know, in programmatic, you know, availability, right? I anticipate we're going to get $20 million as a request, right? So, you know, you can have 5 programs who score exactly the same, and you're going to run out of money, right? So some of those, you know, that's it. That's just the way that it is. And we've always, anytime anything runs through us as a score team, we're always very open about what all the scores are. No problem with that.
Okay.
So what was the final, you're going to show just the gross score, final ranking, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go here.
I just could ask, I don't know if this will be in the appeal process or you can address it all, but if you have a project that's funded, but it either comes under funding by the time it's implemented and/or fails to be able to implement, you've got funding left over, how do you then?
Well, that's going to come under monitoring. That'll be the contractual stuff. You know, that if it's, you know, my plan is for this to be a heavily monitored project. Because again, what we want to do is give the state every reason to reallocate, right? Or to, you know, to redo HEAP again, right? So if it's services or rental assistance and stuff, you know, it'll be a quarterly report and every 6-month visit. And if you're capital, based upon milestones, so that if you're failing or you're not progressing like you said you would, there's adequate time for that issue to come back to the leadership council to make that hard decision to reallocate your funding. And so that information can be attributed to the state for change order and those things can happen.
Yes,
I was going to mention again, you know, I think our process works pretty well because we make the scores evident. The council says basically if people aren't performing, then the next person on the list, you know, we have to break it up by, you know, with the ESG based on rapid rehousing and so forth would get funded. And that just makes it a little bit more transparent. I don't know if that would be an ability to do, but this is a judge.
Yeah, I don't know if the council wants to lock itself into something like that. Because we don't know, A, if any reallocations will occur, B, when those reallocations will occur. And somebody who may be project ready today may not be project ready 18 months from now. I just don't know.
Okay. See no other discussion? All those in favor?
Who was the person second?
And it was that Baldwin motion seconded by Mayor Rivera.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Abstentions. Okay, motion carries unanimously.
This is your last decision. Your last decision is to approve the draft RFP, which is in your package, right? And then I'll put in any modifications, changes that came through today, right?
Okay, so anybody looked over this order? I have some RFPs in the room. Any discussion on the RFP language?
It's a pretty standard RFP.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve.
So
Moved by Mayor Roscoe, seconded by? Yes, sir? Yes, okay.
got it.
Got it. Motion second. Further discussion?
Question.
Yes, question.
Catherine, up front, you had mentioned possibility those other cities, it was very vague, getting into the heat. So has a decision been made on that? Or is the timeline already gone from that, from them to be eligible?
No, what I mean is for the ranking review panel, right, it's just like with that stuff. If for some reason there wasn't the availability of people who had experience in housing.
No, not on them, sorry.
Oh.
Up front about the cities that had declared.
Oh, yes.
Cities that didn't declare their.
Thank you, Mayor, for clarifying.
So, okay, go ahead.
So I have a question on that you kind of vaguely say that there's a possibility that they could be included, but yet they did not declare or give a declaration.
So we have a timeline, let me just go back. We have a timeline to send our initial step to the state. Right. And included in that paperwork, right, that I had to file was copies of all of the declarations, right? And so since the beginning, you know, we've been saying out there, you know, if you want to have capital in your community, you've got to declare, right? So during that community engagement process, which is October to the end of November, there was a hard push for communities to declare. Some did, some didn't, right? So the question now is if they didn't, so those communities are very clearly delineated in the response paperwork. These are the ones who declared, these are the ones that did not, right? So let's say there's a city that did not declare, right? They can put, and say there's an organization that wants to serve that community, right? They can put a rapid rehousing program or rental assistance program or a services program application in. They cannot put a capital program in because you cannot do capital in one of those communities. The question has been raised, can a community come in now, right, after the fact and declare and then be able to get those capital projects in? My answer is I can try to push it through the state, right? But they're going to have to declare like right away. And then I'm going to have to go to the state and say, can I get this community in who didn't come in before?
So my question is, isn't that, you had a timeline for all of that, for those few cities to be able to want to come in now, when that timeline had already passed, you made that loud and clear. Are you the one that's going to make the decision whether you're going to try and go back to the state if an interested non-declared city?
That's up to
or is that
council. I just assume.
Let's take that up. Let's go on this RFP motion, but let's just get clarity on that, right? So, because I would say on that point, in a separate motion, that it would be nice if cities want to declare even if late, a few. Why wouldn't we want them to do that? You know, encourage them to come to the table. So let's deal with that in the second motion. So there's a motion to approve the RFP language. Further discussion on this, and then we'll take up Cheryl's question in a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those against?
I have a question, I'm sorry. I had questions about the RFP language.
Put your hand up.
I don't know what page, it says matching requirements, matching funds are required for heat funding.
No. What page are you on?
There's no page.
Oh, sorry. At the top of the page it says renewal funding, and the second is, and we just never discussed that, so I was confused.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you for seeing that. It should have said are not.
Thank you. And then
So sorry.
The second question, on the very next one, definition of eligible activities. Services, I mean, as a service provider, I think services, as the way you have it defined, is very narrow. Could you have put like a separate in there?
Well, and it's other related activities.
Oh, I thought that was joined with new homesteads. Like,
No.
For new homestead, okay, gotcha.
Okay, well, it was worth taking your thing so we could include
Yeah,
that.
thank you for seeing that, match thing. It's so rare that there's no match, so I cannot even write on it.
You're also a part-time attorney here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm starting to look at the rating panel numbers yet, and I'm just wondering who's going to be left at the end of reading the rating panel, because it's like every single staff or employee, if you have an interest, with applicant organizations, so that means any jurisdiction, no staff, nobody would be eligible to sit on their rating and ranking panel. It probably would kick out a lot of our nonprofit homeless folks, and it feels to me that we would want, you know, I kind of understand we're trying to avoid a conflict of interest, but it's very over, you know, it's very broad, and I'm just wondering who's going to be left.
It's the same question we asked when it's that time, right? And we'll be able to put together a good ranking review. It doesn't preclude everybody. There are people who are absolutely have qualifications to do it and will not be conflicted. And if there's a gap in that, that's when I'll go outside. Like I may sit on Santa Cruz's, they may sit on mine, you know, that kind of thing. That's how you do it.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, Megan, we've offered our services also as people that score lots of applications. So we could help fill in gaps. We've had some conversation, I don't know how it's come back, that same thing from the Monterey Peninsula Foundation. So you could just get people that don't have a daily, they're not working daily in these issues, but have certainly seen applications and seen RFPs and match up the criteria, score based on that. So we've offered some of our support to be able to help rank it.
Okay, awesome.
And I have one other comment, just because I'm a planner by trade. Some of these capital improvements may or may not be allowed in the jurisdictions for zoning or other regulations. And I'm wondering for capital projects, if we would want the jurisdiction to just submit a letter stating that these are allowed to proceed.
That's included in the application.
Is it? Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, there's a motion and second. We're going to include Robin's correction. That's okay with the maker of the motions. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Let's go to the...
Congratulations, you've done your work.
Okay, let's go back to the question about if late jurisdictions to be able to include them and give direction to Catherine to advocate for us. The state will ultimately make the decision, but from our point of view, we would, support including late jurisdictions. Is there a motion for that?
I think that motion.
Motion by Mayor Rivera, seconded by Mayor Gunter. No discussion on this.
So how widely disseminated was the timeline? And are there mitigating circumstances as to why a particular community would not have made that declaration?
It was disseminated pretty widely. I mean, everyone I'm talking to that are calling me now acknowledged that they were contacted before, right?
So I'll go back to that slide so we could see, because many of them are South County cities, you know, and we're talking about regions in Monterey County. I mean, that's if it was some South County cities or Pacific Grove, Delray Oaks, Carmel, it's a few jurisdictions, but if one or two of those, which I anticipate would be the most, want to do it, why not include those?
Right, and here's the thing, that they would have to work very rapidly to make it happen because, you know, that information is included in the RFP, right? So they'd have to really expedite it to make it happen.
Okay. Henry?
I was just going to add that social services sent the declaration and the template to all the city managers and many of the city mayors multiple times, encouraging and trying to make sure people were aware. So it really was out there, but I would have to agree that what would be the harm in allowing people to declare now, the dilemma will be being prepared for a capital project, awaiting that determination.
So know that.
We go to Mayor Gunter, I'll go back to you.
Okay. So you know, Dan, at the mayor's meetings, we've talked about this at the South County mayor's meeting. There's the cities from the valley and Salinas. The all-county mayor's meeting. This discussion was held twice in each of those meetings.
So what's going to happen when someone submits an application late? Are you going to?
If it was a capital application and they submitted in a non-declared community, it would not be threshold, it would not be reviewed.
I don't think that's his point.
Yeah.
That's not his point.
Right, so why have an allowance on one part of a process and yet not have an allowance on another part of the process?
Yeah, what I would say, this is new funding coming from the state, and I hope that it's only phase one. I hope that there's going to be more funding down the road. And all along, in this body, we've tried to encourage more people to come to the table, to solve homelessness on a regional basis. By us trying to exclude these jurisdictions who now might want to come step up to the table, despite maybe, you know, those reasons for their delay, why would we not want to bring them to the table with us right now when we're engaging in this process? Like I said, this is this first round of money from the state. I hope that Governor Newsom will do more, and having those cities also already now doing declared aid and to be able to participate more fully down the road. I think that's what we want. That's what we need to talk about.
Right, exactly.
And I would say that it'd be important that if they're going to declare and want to be considered for funding, they would have to submit documentation of that declaration prior to the RFP going out. Because you're right, it would be unfair for it to just be weird and subjective. You know what I mean? You were just correct in that.
Right, yeah. I just want to make sure that if you're going to understand the implications of bending a rule, if you will, now, and then you're creating precedents, and someone may wonder why you didn't do the same later. I'm not disagreeing with your logic. It's more of a process thing and exposure to this group.
But like I said, we're opening a very short window, as an exception only because this is all new. But down the road, I think we could all, you know, we've aired these opinions out. Yes, Mr. Pacheco.
I think personally, when you consider precedent, you're opening the door for next time. So if you do it this time, you open the door this time, it's not fair to open the door not next time. You gave them 2 months, or I think approximately 2 months to follow the guidelines. I think you have intelligent people on mayors and city managers that know how to follow the rules. I think people should follow the rules. At the worst case scenario, or the best case scenario, maybe, I know you're going to go in the direct take 1 to 9, so be it. But take away a few points, 5 or 10 points, however you want to recognize it, so that way next time they know how to play the game. They should know how all these cities and entities have applied for grants before. This is not a new, you're not opening a new door. Everybody's done this. It's not the first time pony kind of a thing. So just as a thought, I just think you should follow the rules if they're rules, because they're all very smart people in this room that know how to play the game, not the game, but the process.
Well, I would say that just like any decision, we make in government make exceptions all the time. But we can state this as our intent. We're making a very limited exception only for this very purpose. So down the road, we said we make clear this is the one limited exception for this rare circumstances with this new $500,000 status allocated to us. Robin and Mayor mentioned.
A comment was made by someone that was like, you know, well, what do we got to lose? Let's make an exception. And my question is to Catherine. If you put that issue aside, after today, when could you get the RFP out, and how long would the RFP be delayed if we gave cities an opportunity to do it?
I would, well, here's my proposed timetable if you were to approve all your decisions, which you did, right? And my response to that would be the week of February 4th. That those jurisdictions would have until that week to run that decision through their city councils. And if they can't, then they're not going to be included.
So then my comment would be, I think that's fair, but then my comment would be on Dave's recommended, or I don't know, recommendations, that if you're going to allow declarations at this point of emergency shelter, give it a point ding on the application. You will accept your application, you know, for capital for capital money, but you get a 5-point deduction or a 10-point deduction for not having followed the initial rules.
That's a suggestion. It's a very, we're talking about less than 2 weeks here, you know. Mayor Gunter?
Just a thought, and I agree with you about mayors and council members and city managers should have had the smarts to do this. But the guy that's sleeping in the tent out there doesn't have a vote in this room. We're their vote and their voice. And for us to reject the city because some city manager or some mayor was too lazy to get their act together. Shame on us, and we've lowered ourselves to that level. That's my only thought.
So we have a motion to allow the exception. Again, it's contingent on the state allowing it, right? Second, that it's done by the week of February 4th. So you're talking about a 2-week extension. And maybe, Catherine, if you could email those jurisdictions one last time, so they say, we send them an email today, and that way it's clear, and whether they acted or not, then we even gave them that opportunity. So is there such a motion?
And there was third about the points.
The point is, well, it has to be the maker of the motion. I'm not, it's a 2-week extension, I'm not in agreement with.
I think if you let them in, you let them in.
Yeah, let them in. Let's take a motion without the point, and if that doesn't pass, we'll consider a point deduction. Is there such a motion by Mayor Gutcher? Oh, Mayor Baldwin? Second? Is there a second? Mayor Gutcher? All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Those abstentions? Okay, we got a 2-week extension. All right. Okay. So anyway, we got through all those, and now we're going just to the homeless point in town count.
Well, I'm just kind of go through the timeline so everyone's very, very clear, right? So the way that I kind of work this is that I'll do public notice the week of February 4th. And please know, all things heat related and all things leadership council related, just go to our website. That's where we're loading everything up, right? The week of February 25th, we'll schedule a mandatory bidders conference. So all potential applicants must present to that. If they don't meet threshold, right? I figure I've kind of done a straw poll of like 20 organizations, large and small. So what's the minimum amount of time period you think to do a turn, an application turn? Everybody tends to agree that 30 days seems to be okay, right? So we have 30-day turn, so month of March. With 8 projects being due, April Fool's Day, I thought that was appropriate. The week of April 8th would be the ranking review panel meeting. Mid to late April, the leadership council will maybe need to hold a special meeting, but we'll kind of know more later. And then the month of May is when we contract negotiations. It's hard to tell how long, I don't know how many it's going to be, 2 projects or 20, I don't know. And then I figured we could have contracts executed by June 2019, which is pretty ambitious. So that's about as quick as we can move the model of the process.
Okay, questions on timeline, Chris?
So the public notice period, are you going to have the NOFA out? Just my observation, we're adding a month because we're assuming that, mandatory bidders conference, when the NOFA is out, people aren't really given about 2 months to put together the applications, and it just feels like June, we're so desperate to like move the needle now, like June is a ways away before we have our first projects out the door. I'm just wondering if we could look at, maybe squishing the time a little bit more, so that we can maybe get things going.
I don't know, I thought this was a pretty good switch. Remember, the coalition didn't have this on our work plan. We squished this entire process into our work plan. We're doing the best we can to expedite everything.
No, that's not a criticism of you all. I'm just wondering for the, for the applicants, because you're really having a 2-week or 2-month preparation period. A lot of times I know NOFAs are out the door. You might have your questions and answers, in that 30-day period.
What would you recommend?
Maybe,
Which part are you talking about?
Well, we're giving the application preparation period March 1st to 31st, but I know what I have to do by February 4th, correct?
You know what you have to do, but you haven't attended the bidders conference yet.
So maybe, maybe 2 weeks after the bidders conference is when, that absolutely due. Because you would be preparing it starting.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that because of organizations that are on the smaller side, right? And there are some organizations that they haven't started to prepare anything until they attend that bidders conference. Because that's a technical assistance session, right? Even though you've read the NOFA, even though the application is up, right? You go to that bidders conference to determine whether or not you're a go or you're a no-go, right? it's really the time to ask all of your questions in person. And then to only give people 14 days notice after that, this seems to be highly compressed. And I'll do it any way you want me to do it, but I'm trying to do it in such a way that it gives some time for people to absorb the process.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I think there's going to be a lot of collaborative applications to do with this, and that's going to stretch out the timeline for preparing an application. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 organizations that are working together, just by the nature of that, it's going to stretch out how fast we can get forward on that. It's just something that you have to account, I think.
Okay. You keep it at April 1st, or you want to move it a week before, March 25th, April 1st? Keep it. I'm getting a lot of naughty heads, so let's take this time on it, okay? We're talking about just a few days difference. Okay. All right. Okay, any other questions on this? All right. Let's give Catherine a round of applause. Now let's go to the point in time count.
So the point in time count is scheduled for next Thursday. I just want to remind everyone how important it is. These are the numbers we've been on for 2 years. We're kind of in the final stuff, in and around it. If you want, please get involved if you can, right? If you're working with people who are homeless or formerly homeless, who know where people sleep at night, they would be great as homeless guides. If remember, homeless guides are paid. You can sign up to our website, which we get to. Thank you very much for being involved in early.
But Catherine, there's a training required, right?
No, it's not required, it's offered, right? When you get your email saying thank you for signing up, it'll tell you there's a training on this day and that day. If you're a general volunteer, you can attend the training, or you don't have to, right? They also do an orientation in the morning and they'll also link you to a YouTube video, right? It's just if you want to. It's not,
which is good, I mean, at least the YouTube video.
Yeah, if you're a homeless guy, you're required to go to training, and you're paid for that training, but you don't get paid for your time until the day of the camp, because you're paid for that too, if you're a homeless guy.
So I know my office, we only have a team of 4, but we're all volunteering to do it. We're going to train this Friday in Monterey, but I certainly want to, if you could help get the word out. How many volunteers do we have now?
I think we have like 125 now, and I'm just looking for 2 pockets right now. I'm trying to put together a special South County team, working with Mayor LeBaire and a couple other people on there. And then, oddly enough, I need a youth team for Salinas. So we're trying to put those 2 pockets together, and then we'll.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Megan.
I did have a question. I'm just equating it with the census. They have like different subcommittees and looking for cities to kind of identify hard to, they have our map of hard to reach areas. I don't know if ASR is talking to jurisdictions about where the pockets of the homeless are, so that
we already put that information from hotspotting. We've already asked jurisdictions, fire departments, fire departments, police departments, housing divisions and jurisdictions to let us know where those hotspots are, and that information passed on to ASR.
And is it possible to get a report so we can help get some word out, make sure that they are responding? Because I don't know if
you can send it. We're at the final crunch now, right? So we're really into kind of heads down, moving this thing along. But if you're in a jurisdiction and you know hotspot information, get it to me, right? I'll move it forward quickly. But they'll be putting together census mapping extremely soon. So please get it to me as quickly as you possibly can.
And just to reiterate, this count is so important to us because future funding is going to be based on these numbers. So we want to have the most accurate count as possible. So if any of you, anybody in this room could help us get some more volunteers, I mean, that's going to help us, Monterey and San Diego be more successful. How about San Benito County side on the count for that day?
I think we're pretty good. The last I heard from Enrique, we have the people we need, the drivers we need.
Awesome.
Everybody's going through training and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I'm confident.
Good for San Benito County. You guys are doing really good. Okay.
All right, and if you forget to sign up, and you wake up early, and I do early.
What's that, 4:30, right?
4:30, next Thursday, and you're looking for something to do, right? You know, if you're in the San Benito side, go to the shelter. If you want to count on the peninsula side, come here, right here in this room. If you want to count on the Salinas side, go to the Labor Council on Sanborn, right?
Teamsters Hall.
Teamsters Hall. And the South County and the homeless youth camp, they're done kind of different.
Okay. Any other questions on this discussion? Robin? Oh, you just... You were begging, yeah. Okay. All right. Last question about the meeting in February.
Yeah, your next normally scheduled meeting is on March 27th, but I wanted to make sure you have the opportunity to take the meeting in February, if so.
Does anybody see any urgent things?
The only issue would be that if we're redoing the weekly home, whatever process.
Well, I think the committee's gonna meet first, and then if they decide they need a meeting, I'm sure they'll get Catherine to send us come to this meeting if you don't wanna have a good time.
So do we need one? We can just leave it all open question. If we need it, we could call it, otherwise...
Yeah, that was a little off. But anyway, all of this is very new to me. It's my first time, and so I'm going to need one of those packets. Thank you. And I'm a new council member in San Juan Bautista. I've lived there a long time. I was baptized as a Christian. And my husband and I have been there now for 35 years. I was born in Hollister, and I have been in banking and real estate, and I am a LULAC member. I don't know if many of you might be familiar with LULAC. And I was encouraged by my women friends to run as a council member, and so I figured, okay, I'll do it. And so here I am.
We look forward to you treating us at the table, you know, and look forward to just like our other city partners working with you in the city of Juan San Juan Bautista and addressing homelessness. So we're excited about having you as part of our team. Other than quick announcements, anybody before we get
So just to be clear,
yes.
so is council member Edge, we have one opening on category 1, and I'm hearing that it was an appointment. So is council member Edge taking that slot?
That's my guess. But the intent is that someone Tuesday wants to take the discussion.
There's one open slot, and if you're appointed, the council member can be added in that slot if you like.
Okay. Do we need action on that? Or?
I don't know, we didn't, there wasn't action because of the appointments came to the mayor association for category 1. This would be a similar sort of appointment.
Okay.
So it would just happen.
Okay.
If you're good with it.
Good. Any other announcements, anybody? Last announcement.
Seaside, so Councilman Wizard and myself are hosting a town hall meeting February 13th, 6 o'clock at the Open Air Center. Get some community input.
And everybody, we want to give a round of applause to Seaside because they really stepped up. They're in search for a place for a shelter. We have to do some community outreach at this point, a public process. But we got to give them a round of applause for stepping up. Any other good news or announcements? See none? Everybody, thank you very much. We'll see you at the next meeting.
You're an hour early.
Yeah, an hour early. That's how we roll. See you guys.